Hey, this is Evan Longoria of your San Francisco Giants, and you're listening to Torture Cast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. With hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, Ben Lee, and Eric Nathanson. Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants. This is Torture Cast.
It's Monday, April 1st, 2019, and this is episode 159 of the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. My name is Chad King, and joining me today is my co-host, all the way from Georgia. It's a nice 52 degrees, sunny, warm, blossoms are falling. Eric Nathanson, how are you, man?
Pecan trees are starting to bloom. I'm doing well. Not quite the life aquatic of Chad King over the last few weeks, and I just want to brag on my my podcast partner here. He's been a superstar of the aquatic world lately with discoveries of octopus gardens and the chance to go see more. And it sounds like he has been in the thick of it, doing dives and stuff like that. And I just want to say it's really cool that you've been doing that. And if you can put a link to some of the stuff online so people can see a little bit of your discoveries and stuff like that, that would be really cool, because some Chad stuff's going to be featured on BBC, and I just want to brag on him for a minute. So if you can, humbly drop a link into today's show notes so that you can check that kind of stuff out. So if you want to know why we've had to delay our season preview until after the San Diego series, it's so that Chad can keep on rocking with scientific discoveries. And we here at TortureCast fully support that, because after all, we are a podcast by fans and for fans. And as fans, we still have our own lives. And right now, Chad's life is superstardom in the underwater world.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I appreciate that, Eric. The last 3 weeks, we've been trying to get on the mic, but I had the flu for the better part of a week after it ravaged my family. Then I went to Rhode Island for work, and then my wife had her 5th and final surgery. She's been going through this whole long thing. I will spare you on, you know about it, but and then last week on Sunday I left for this very short 4-day cruise, but that's why we couldn't record on Monday or last week, where I did have the opportunity to dive in the Alvin submarine, which is just a real famous submarine. It was used by Bob Ballard to survey the Titanic after he discovered that. It's just a real historic submarine. I didn't dive in a historic submarine. It's been redone a billion times, so it's not the original from 1964, thankfully.
Wow, 55-year-old submarine.
I know. I wouldn't have gone in that if that were the case. But yeah, BBC came out on the ship with us because they wanted to have another spot to broadcast for this BBC Blue Planet live week back to the UK. Unfortunately, not to the US, but hopefully we'll get a condensed version of that in the future. It was an incredible opportunity to dive twice in the Alvin, and we made even more discoveries at this octopus garden. And I'll definitely put a link in the show notes, because if you're so inclined, if you have an interest in marine science and cool stuff like that, you can do that. But I know a lot of you tune in not to hear about deep sea research, but to hear about the Giants. And so that's what we're here to do today. It is April Fool's Day, and so we're not joking, saying that the Giants are 1-3.
I'm going to give a full disclosure. I want to give a full disclosure. Chad wanted to come on with a nice, lighthearted, April Fool's prank, and I'm the crank of the bunch. And I've already gotten into an argument online today about April Fool's Day, so I had to nix that idea because I didn't think y'all would appreciate it. So I just want to say I'm the fun ruiner of the bunch, so that doesn't cast a pall over the season preview.
I was very much a fence sitter on this one. I was like, should I? I don't know, because I've seen all this stuff come across the wire today, and I go, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And then Eric brought up a good point. It was like, if you think that, it's like, yeah, why do it? It's like, okay, I agree. I was kind of like, would it be fun to talk about, oh my God, it just came across the wire and Madison Bumgarner got traded to the Yankees or something. But no, we're going to play it straight.
Not yet.
Not yet. That could happen, and we'll get to that later. But Yeah, so this is officially our season preview episode. Traditionally, we've always done it before the season starts, but just like my fantasy draft with all my buddies that we're doing this Sunday, things came up and we had to do it a little bit later. But anyway, that's why we had the long break, because of my life kind of got in the way. So sorry about that. We will try and record every week, and my schedule is going to be settling down, so it should be doable. But the season
There's
has
only
officially
so many
started.
octopuses in the sea to discover.
Yeah, I was telling Eric, it was pretty funny. I was in the submarine 2 miles deep under the ocean when the Giants and Padres threw the first pitch in season opener. So I was thinking to myself, I really, really love opening day. I love taking the day off of work and sitting at home and just eating and drinking all day, watching the quadruple header, watching the Giants. It's a rite of passage. It's a tradition, and I love it. But it's some pretty cool shit I was doing in the meantime, so I wasn't going to lament it. But I did catch up. I was able to see a good portion of the 4-game series. Unfortunately, as you know, there's not a lot to write home about, but that's what we're going to talk about today. The season has officially started, and unfortunately not in great form. The Giants did lose 3 out of 4 to San Diego and scored a whopping total of 5 runs in the 4-game series, and finished off the series with 1 run and 2 measly hits yesterday. And by the way, 2 of the Padres starting pitchers were rookies, and 1 was a second-year starter. So here we go again. The Giants are victimized by the rookies. It just seems to happen every year. Even when the Giants were good, winning their World Series, they seem to have this problem with hitting guys they've never seen before. That's not what I'm going to say this year. This year, I think it's just ineptitude that's causing this. Not bad luck against rookies or people they don't know. But so kind of, what do you? I mean, we'll get into some details, but just what are your initial thoughts of the first series, Eric?
Well, it's about what I expected, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Bumgarner looked good. He threw 7 strong, struck out 9 on opening day, and got caned. And I have a feeling that Bumgarner is going to get caned a lot this season.
Yeah.
It's just going to come with him because it's going to be that time where they don't score, but he always keeps, if Bum gives up 1 or 2 runs over the span of 7 or 8 innings, it's a good start. And he's going to consistently
disappointed with that. Yeah.
Right. You put your team in a position to win. And actually that's my most initial thought. Every starting pitcher put the team in a chance to win all 4 games. So pitching does not seem like it's going to be a problem this season. I know we got Pomeranz coming tonight for the first time that we're going to see him, but between Bumgarner and Holland will be serviceable for what he is, which is 5 innings. He only had 4, but 5 innings, 3 runs, 6 innings, 2 runs. D-Rod, again, looks to be somebody. He was very much in control when he was out there on Saturday night. And I thought Samardzija looked good for the most part yesterday. He didn't seem to always know where his fastball was going to go, but it had unbelievable late movement on it. Mm-hmm. So Giants pitching is my initial takeaway is that's going to be a very strong suit. Their hitting stinks, and nobody's getting on base. It's not even just that nobody's driving anybody in. Nobody's even getting on. But their pitching looks solid from top to bottom. I thought bullpen usage was a little suspect yesterday, but that's on Bochy. I thought he could have used some lefties. But from top to bottom, everybody's gotten their feet wet, and they've looked pretty good.
Yeah, I think pitching right now, and we knew pitching was going to be okay this year. It was okay last year. They have a strong bullpen. Their starters don't look half bad. Some of their middle relief guys, I think, could be an issue, but they proved it. In just the 4 games, they got the second best ERA in the National League. I mean, I'm not talking about large sample size. We all get it, guys. But my point is, the pitching wasn't the issue this weekend. Of course, leading the NL in ERA are the Padres because of the Giants' lack of hitting, scoring 5 runs in 4 games.
The Giants pitching staff did a really good job of identifying Tatis Jr.'s weakness and going after it and handling Manny Machado. And I think those are the engines that could help make the Padres run this year. This Tatis Jr. kid, he's freaking phenomenal. He's really good. And I think he'll be a star for a while. He's like Javi Baez, almost.
Yeah, he's 19 years old or 20 years old.
20, yeah, 20.
Yeah, he looked good the first couple games, but they definitely exploited his weaknesses in games 3 and 4. And they shut down Manny Machado. I know he had a couple hits here and there. And, Bochy almost looked like a genius yesterday when they walked Eric Hosmer, brought in Dyson, and he got exactly what he wanted, which was a ground ball for the double play. Unfortunately, it was hit a little too soft. So Crawford had a charge, flip it to Panic, and Panic's throw was just a tiny bit late. I mean, he was definitely safe, but it was only by a fraction of a second. And so that would have prevented that run that put the Padres ahead. And they eventually added another one and won 3-1. Point being is that they almost shut that down. Who knows how yesterday's game would have ended, assuming it went to extra innings. Maybe the Giants would have mustered something. But
right, and that's a microcosm.
They're looking good.
Right. That's a microcosm of the problem with the Giants is the pitching's there and they'll always be in these close games. But if something doesn't break their way, they're not going to win these close games.
Yeah. So we haven't recorded in 3 or 4 weeks, and boy, we could talk an hour and a half about roster moves. Also, MLB proposed changes that are coming in for rules this year and next year, which I don't even want to talk about because it gets me angry. But who the F are these guys that made the roster, Eric? I mean, this is insane. We've been talking about it in the offseason and into the spring, talking about Shaw and Williamson and Duggar and these other guys. And suddenly we have Connor Joe and Michael
Reed, yeah,
in our outfield. I mean, I'll admit I've heard of these guys in passing, but obviously, no one's knowledgeable about these guys. And suddenly they're on the opening day roster and they're starting in the outfield, especially their right-handers. They're going to be facing left-handed pitching primarily. But I know we have Zaidi, and he has found so many diamonds in the rough with, Chris Taylor and Max Muncy and the revival of Justin Turner and a few others. So he has a track record of doing this, no doubt. And that's what he's doing now. And my question to you is 2 parts. 1, did you see this coming? And number 2, do you think that this is what I think Zaidi, he's a big guy on if you've been in the bigs for a while and you have a certain track record, you're not going to get any better. And we know who you are. Why are we going to go with someone, that is just not going to perform the way we want to perform? Versus a guy who maybe is an eternal minor leaguer or has had just a cup of coffee, but those stats in the minors are really good in terms of on-base percentage, which is a big key that Zaidi has zeroed in on. And both of these guys have on-base percentages in the minors of over 400. Reed has hit over 300, and Connor Joe had 17 bombs in the minor leagues. And so, to me, I'm thinking Zaidi really is coming up with, hey, look, Cameron Maybin is not going to help us. We know who he is, right? He's going to have his moments in time, but he's not going to turn into a superstar. What if these guys who have proven to be very effective in the minor leagues, after they get a little seasoning, they become that next Max Muncy or Chris Taylor or whatever? I just have to, they call it the runway opportunity. Basically, they trade they shove him in the lineup. Bochy even was quoted as saying, I've never had this happen to me before. It's usually, we have a bunch of guys in spring training, they all fight it out, and then we have tough decisions. Now it's, we have spring training, they all fight it out, and Zaidi trades for 2 guys and basically is like, start them. So it's interesting position for fans to be in for the first time. Certainly Bochy going into his last year. But that was kind of a long-winded question to you. Do you think... Yeah, I know, right? I have a 2-part question, Eric. Let me talk for 5 minutes.
6 parts later.
Did you see this coming, and do you think, why in the hell not?
Well, all right. I did not see this coming. What I did see was there was going to be different outfielders, possibly 1 or 2 on the opening day roster that weren't with camp the entire time. I thought it would be major league ready players because my assessment of what Zaidi tried to do this spring is the Giants have so much pitching depth, especially in the bullpen, that he gambled that some teams were going to be looking for bullpen help at the end of spring, and that he might be able to get a veteran outfielder on the cheap for some trade of, Tony Watson, Will Smith, maybe Melanson, who knows? You can only hope. One of those guys. And when that didn't come to fruition, and he had these 2 high OBP guys, Connor Joe and Michael Reed, I think he forced them on Bochy because, like you said, Cameron Maybin's a known quantity. Mac Williamson falls under the known quantity category. And so Mac was cut, basically. He was DFA'd for these two guys. And I think the reason these two guys specifically, Michael Reed and Connor Joe, made the opening day roster is the high OBP stuff you talked about. And the fact that the Giants started out with a very lefty-heavy opposing starters for the beginning of the season. 3 of the 4 games in San Diego, they faced left-handed pitchers. 2 of the 3 games in LA, they're facing left-handed pitchers. Then they have to face Tampa, but then they play the Padres again for 3 games, and that's more left-handed pitching again. Right. So I think Zaidi threw them on the roster to say, this is your tryout. This is your chance to show me you can stick. And if by the end of the Padres series, neither of these guys has proven themselves as anything, I think we're going to see some reshuffling of the roster. Yeah. And I think that the lefty-right matchups aren't going to come into play as much. And somebody like Shaw might get a shot again at the outfield. Williamson, I don't know if he's accepted an assignment to Sacramento. I don't know what's going on with him. I think he actually could benefit from a new location where he doesn't have all this baggage hanging around him. Yeah. With the Giants, it's always going to be, he was like a quadruple A hitter. He never really got it going, but then he got injured when he did get it going, and he never really got a chance. Enough of that. Let him just go have a fresh start somewhere else. I truly believe that would be best for him and the Giants. But that's why I think Joe and Reed were on the opening day roster. Is Zaidi swung and missed at the opportunity to pick up a veteran outfield bat at the end of spring training. So these guys were his plan B or C. Yeah. And I just think he kind of made a misstep to start his tenure here. I understand what he was going for, and I see, and I wrote about it in my little season preview, I see that he is trying to build depth. He is making a ton of moves. I looked up the numbers. Where was the good number? Here it is. From January to March under Bobby Evans in 2018, the Giants made 2 trades and signed 14 free agents to major or minor league deals. Wow. This year, during the same stretch, Zaidi made 10 trades and signed 25 free agents to minor or major league contracts. Also took 2 guys in the Rule 5 draft, claimed a handful of other guys off waivers. So I get that he's trying to take what he can, throw at the wall, let it stick, stash some guys in the minors, build some depth. But, he misstepped feeling what the market was going to be among the other major league teams. And so now he kind of has to regroup, and the Giants have to focus forward. And it's just a shame that Bochy in his last season kind of gets lost in the shuffle of this.
Yeah, he's definitely got a lower level lineup than I think he was expecting. But, as a fan, we knew that the Giants, no matter if they had 0 trades or they traded the entire team, they're not going to be good this year. We just knew this was going to come. It's going to take some development of minor leagues. It's going to take future trades. It's going to take time till these, the Giants are good. Zaidi is certainly trying. I mean, my God, Bobby Evans, the problem that I think that he fell into was, hey, we won 3 out of 5 years. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, the problem is the players broke, and they kept with that roster, and it just was not producing. And so they kind of stayed with the status quo, and to see this precipitous drop off with older players and bad contracts and guys from the minors that just cannot perform. They're, like you said, they're quadruple A players. They're just not breaking through. They got to a breaking point, and they realized, okay, this isn't working anymore. We need to fix this. And so they dismissed Bobby Evans and hired Zaidi, who has this track record with both the A's and the Dodgers of finding these diamonds in the rough and going for more of the analytical baseball, the Billy Bean baseball, and the Moneyball stuff. So I don't have a problem with it. I really don't, especially for a couple of years. I mean, let's let this thing play out. And so I know a lot of fans are upset and they're pining to get rid of Zaidi. And it's, again, if Bobby Evans was still at the helm, things would not be different. The Giants would not be any better. And in fact, I'm sure they would be worse. So it's reshuffling the deck and it's reloading. And
yeah, they're not like 1 or 2 moves away from contending for a world championship here. And I feel like the Bryce Harper courtship in the offseason skewed that view a little bit. And fans forgot that the Giants are a team in a rebuilding mode, that they are not a team that's built to win now. Could they catch lightning in a bottle? Absolutely, they could. Teams catch lightning in a bottle. 1 or 2 moves could be made in the next month or 2. And, somebody like a Cody Ross comes in, or, just examples like that. But I think it skewed the view that they're in a rebuild, and fans need to remember that they're going to be competitive, but I don't think they're going to be as horrible as they were the last 2.5 years, they're going to be competitive, but they might not win a lot of games.
They're not quite the Baltimore Orioles, but
No, definitely not.
they're definitely going to be near the bottom of the NL. And I think, we're just not used to this. We're spoiled since 2010. And so it's been 8 years. I mean, 8 years of excellence. I know the last year wasn't, but my point is that you still feel like this team should always be competing for a world championship because that's what they do. That's what they have done in the last 7-8 years. But this is the pendulum. This is the roller coaster ride of being a fan of a team. I mean, to win 3 out of 5, that's incredible. That hasn't happened since the Yankees in the 90s, late 90s. And before that, the Big Red Machine and the A's in the 70s. So it's a very infrequent thing what we experience as fans. And so we have to readjust our expectations and realize we're on the downside of that roller coaster. We're nearing the bottom. We may be at the bottom. But hopefully Zaidi is taking us back up that slow cranking chain mechanism, right? It takes time, guys. It takes time. And so,
to be fair to Zaidi, he is saddled with a manager that he has to work with. I'm sure they get along, and I'm sure they say all the right things, but he is literally saddled with a lame duck manager. We know that Bochy will only be here for another year, and this is no offense to Bochy. A Hall of Fame manager, 3 out of 5. But Zaidi's hands are kind of tied. If he had his own guy in place, then he could force guys like Michael Reed and Connor Joe on the roster a little easier. Instead of it being like, what the hell's going on? I think like us as a fan base, we'd be more accepting of it if it was a rookie manager in place.
Yeah, I think Bochy he's such a great guy. He really knows how to play his cards, and he knows he's in his last year, and he's not going to rock the boat at this point. There's no reason to. He knows they're not going anywhere. But, you read between the lines when they asked him about Connor Joe and Michael Reed being on the roster as this runway opportunity. And, he says, and this is not verbatim, I'm paraphrasing, but I've never been in this situation before where I basically have 2 guys that are going to have a runway opportunity. Well, okay, translate that. That means, what the F? I'm being forced to do this, so I don't really have a choice. I get it, and he's probably not happy about it. He would rather probably see Mac Williamson on the team because he has a personal relationship with him, and he's had, moments of success, and I'm sure there's an emotional connection. But Zaidi is purely analytical and objective, and so that's what he's doing right now. And Bochy is like, well, I'm in my last year. I'm retiring, so I'm going to be done with this shit anyway. So I'm just going to roll with it. That's
exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I would do. If I was, a lame duck manager or that senioritis, I'd be like, oh, this sucks, but we weren't going anywhere anyway, so why rock the boat? I'll just deal with it,
And bless him for it. And it's kind of how I'm taking my view on the 2019 season.
Yeah, me too.
I don't expect them to compete. Anything that's progress, I'll be happy with.
Yeah.
As long as the team doesn't look like this, after these 4 games, what they look like now, if this team looks the same in August, I'm going to be pissed.
Well,
then there's been no progress. Yeah. Right. This team better have.
Well, Eric, if they're 10
players.
and 30, a quarter of the way in, that's going to be a problem. But yeah, hopefully they don't pull an Orioles of whatever it was, 87 was it? 88? 88, I think.
88.
When they lost the first 21 games. I remember I was in high school then, and to see a team open up the season with 21 straight losses, that was incredible. But
yeah, they got hammered by the White Sox opening day. I remember watching that at home.
Yeah, so I mean the Giants aren't at that level, but I think Giants fans buckle up. Just don't have any expectations this year of playoffs or whatever. And one of the things I can say, when you do get into a year where you think your team is going to be competitive and be successful, there's a lot riding on it. You get stressed out in games, oh, we're 1 up, we're 1 back. This big series is important, whatever. I'm not going in with any of those expectations. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something like I do CrossFit, right? So they have these open competitions where everybody signs up and you go compete against all these people in the world. Okay, fine. I'm not going to win. I'm just going to go do my workout and have fun. That's the way I'm kind of viewing this. Is like the Giants are going to win, but I'm just going to have fun watching them. So in another way, you can kind of spin it into looking at specific stories and rooting for specific players, waiting for certain things to happen, certain moments to happen. But don't get too stressed out about it, guys. I mean, the Giants aren't going to be good this year, so don't bitch and moan if they lose 2 out of 3 to the Dodgers or whatever. It's just that's going to be this season. So it's about the little victories and seeing the development of the team and individual players to see if we have a chance in a couple of years. So I think that's the way we need to view this season.
Yeah, it's so much more relaxing. I watched all first 4 games, and I cheered when the Giants did stuff. I was sarcastic when the Giants could. Oh my gosh. When they finally scored a run Friday night, Twitter exploded. And I got to say, my hat's off, midseason form. Like, Giants
Mid-season
Twitter was
form,
having a
yep.
ball. Yeah, they were. Because, I mean, there's nothing you can do but, like, kind of laugh through the pain at times. And like, my personal take is they won 3 and 5, and then they had another 5 years to try to do some other things. They didn't. It's time to blow it up. That's fine, because they still won those 3 and 5, which is more than I ever thought I would get. Now, that does run out after a while.
Exactly.
Right. It does run out after a while. 2-3 years into Zaidi's tenure, if there's been no progress and they haven't made the playoffs or even contended, yeah, I'm going to be pissed. What'd you do to my baseball team?
I agree.
But I'm still good with that. So I'm kind of curious to watch things like, can Belt stay healthy for a whole year? Can Longoria have a bounce back year? How about Bumgarner? This hopefully will be the first time he makes it through the first couple of the months of the season without being injured. Is Posey's hip up to the task? How can Duggar develop in center field, which is something I'm really looking forward to watching. Yeah. And then who will end up being in left field and right field eventually? And how's the bullpen look? So like you said, there's individual stories in there to be found. Bochy is 73 wins away from, 2000 as a manager. Mm-hmm. And that would put him in, I think, the top, I have this written down, like the top 8 in wins or something like that. Yeah, he does. And he's like, he is 9th all time in games managed. And he needs 82 to tie DeRocher with 2008 for 10th most wins all time. So he'll be in 11th place on his own if he gets. I think he is now in 11th place on his own, and all 10 guys above him are in the Hall of Fame. So he's just going to ride it out, so I'm just going to ride it out with him. Bochy farewell tour. He deserves it. Everything that he did for this franchise, he deserves it. So there's no reason for me to get up in arms about any game. Yeah, I'll scratch my head about moves that he makes, and we're still going to digest it because we love the Giants. That's part of loving the Giants. It's loving them in their bad times and their good.
So in those 4 games, the Giants only scored 5 runs, had 22 hits, and so their batting average is 177. And by the way, let's touch back on Connor Joe and Michael Reed. You wrote this down. How did they do this weekend?
0 for 15 with 9 strikeouts. Yeah. And I wouldn't be shocked if all 9 weren't looking because it felt like every single one of them was.
I will say this. The difference between the two that I personally saw, and this is very subjective, Connor Joe had a couple of atom balls. But to me, he also looked confident at the plate. He really did. I know he had no results, but Michael Reed did not look comfortable at the plate. He looked more deer in headlights, and so it's a little bit of a concern for me. I don't know if that has anything to do with being thrust into the major leagues when he clearly was not expecting this.
Right.
So I think we have to let this settle in. I know I've been listening to some KNBR, and a lot of fans are like, cut these guys right away. And it's like, okay, Buster Posey's gone 0 for 15 before. Okay, so let's let it settle down. Let's get the sample size going. But
man, Connor Joe doesn't even have a good arm, man. He threw like a four-hopper to second. Oh, so for that bad out to watch.
Oh,
yes.
That was so bad when he
didn't deserve that out, man. That guy should have been saved just out of spite because that throw was so bad.
I really think I have a better arm than Connor Joe. Anyway, point being, that was a 4-hopper, and it was pure luck that they got the guy. I mean, honestly, it was. It was such
second, not a 4-hopper home, a 4-hopper to second,
and not deep from left field either. And that if you look at the converse of it, you got Parra throwing out the pitcher from right field with the bases loaded. That was awesome.
Play of the weekend.
That was so cool. It saved a run and maybe more. And it's something that you see in Little League on occasion. You hardly ever see it in the majors. So that was fantastic. I love reading that little story. I guess Belt and Parra, because the pitcher was up. There's always a chance that happens, right? And apparently they locked eyes, and Belt pointed to first, and Parra nodded. And so they had this happens at some time. They get a feeling, and they're like, "Hey, you get a line drive to right field, try it." And I was like, "All right, I'll try it." And sure enough, shot 2-hopper, 3-hopper, whatever it was to right field, and the Padre fans are going crazy. They're like, "Yeah, we got to run!" And then Parra's like, "No, you don't." And it was like, it just deflated the stadium. It was so awesome.
They should have told Joe Panic, though, because Parra almost took his head off. If Panic had been like a foot to his left, it went like right over his left shoulder. If he had been like a foot to his left, he might have taken that one in the noggin.
Yeah. No, that is a play that is you see once a year in the majors, and most of the time you don't. I mean, those
are the fun things to look for during the Giants season. Stuff like that.
Things. Like, these guys are trying. It's not, these people are saying, "Oh, they're tanking already." And it's like, no, in baseball you don't tank because here's the difference. Like if you're the Los Angeles Lakers and you're out of the playoffs, you're going to tank because you're going to heal up LeBron James and go for a good draft spot, because draft spots in the NBA and in football mean a lot more than they do in baseball.
Yeah.
The Giants, I mean, even if it was the end of the season, you don't tank because who cares if you draft 2nd or 10th? In baseball, it doesn't really matter too much. There's so much variability in these guys who are drafted. So, no, these guys are. No one thinks it now. I'm just saying, even later, there's not going to be any tanking. There might be resting some players, Posey if he's hurt or whatever, but it's not an issue now. These guys are trying it, and so it's fun to see Parra, do this little thing. It was good to see Shark look really good yesterday, to be honest.
Yeah.
And he got a little bitey with Bochy. Did you see that when he was taken out?
No.
Oh, after 85, 86 pitches, he was pinch hit for by Connor Joe, by the way. And so they showed the whole replay of Shark just kind of bitching out in the open with people around him. Just there were a few F-bombs and things like that. And then he walked down the dugout, and Bochy was coming out of the tunnel, and he just was like, under his breath, said something to Bochy. Bochy said something back, and then he turned to 180 and followed Bochy and was like, "Motherfucker, fuck, shit, blah, blah, blah." You could just see the F-bombs dropping, and Bochy just kind of said a couple words and kept walking. So, Shark obviously was feeling it. He was competitive. He wanted to stay in. But obviously from the Giants' point of view, he was coming up in the batting order. He already was at 85 or 86 pitches. He's coming off his injury. It's the first start of the year. So I don't blame Bochy for taking him out. They're trying to be a little conservative. But I also like to see the fire in Shark wanting to go back out there. So that was great. I love to see that.
He was in mid-season form with that. Okay, I saw some of it. I had music going, so I did not. You know what I mean? I would have cued in. I would have cued in on it instead of just catching a glimpse of it.
Yeah.
And the competitive fire, because he probably Shark's got something to prove this year, so he feels like he's in mid-season form already, and that he can conquer the world, and he's got to settle that adrenaline down a little bit. I'll bet you though, a month from now, Bochy's letting him go out there for one more inning, and
I think so too. Yeah, if he's healthy, he'll have his 30 starts, and he'll definitely go over 100, because he's always been a horse before last year. It was just last year he had these problems. So I understand the Giants. They owe him a lot of money, and they have a decent bullpen. It didn't work out, but when you score 1 run, what are you supposed to do? You don't blame the bullpen for giving up a couple of runs. You don't. It's you blame the offense. So again, Giants have 22 hits and 1 home run. How many home runs do the Dodgers have, Eric?
Well, after hitting 8 on opening day, they have a total of 14 already.
Okay, the Giants have 8 more hits than the Dodgers have home runs. That's insane. Insane. I was about to say insanity. That is insanity. And that's where the Giants are going, by the way. The Giants are going in. Now, Arizona pitching, who knows what they're going to be like this year. But Drew Pomeranz is starting tonight, so we're going to see some, the starting pitching has been fine. The bullpen has been fine. The Giants' pitching has been fine in 4 games. We're going to see what happens when they go into L.A. with this really hot-hitting team. They're hitting like over 300. They got 14 bombs already. They're having a great time. They've won 3 out of 4. And I actually do expect the Giants to come in and really not shut the Dodgers down, but put a little oppression on them. I think they're going to hold the Dodgers to maybe an average of 3 runs a game, not 8 runs a game, which that can't be sustained anyway. But again, the Giants' offense is just and they're not going to do the job. And so I'm a little worried that they could get swept this series, and that would really set them back. But this is the kind of series you look for because it's their rivals. And so the Giants players, even though there's a lot of new faces, they know about the rivalry. They're going to get up for this game. And I know the Dodgers will too, but I'm just hoping that this series is going to be a little bit, of a turnaround if the Giants can get a couple of big hits if they put runners on. Maybe they can get lucky and win 2 out of 3. But the way the Dodgers offense is rolling right now, that could be a really, really tough call.
Yeah, the Giants pitching staff is better than the Diamondbacks. As somebody who watched a lot of that series as well, they're not going to have these slugfests like they've had. They're not going to have, heck, Russell Martin closed the game out yesterday for the Dodgers. That's how big of a lead they had. They scored over 10 runs twice, I think, over the 4 games. I don't think they're going to do that against the Giants, but I do think the Giants are going to have to score 4 or 5 runs in one of these games just to take one. And all I can hope for, and this is just my take on the season, I'm going to be a lot like this. All I can hope for is they can win the Bumgarner start on Tuesday because it's Bumgarner, it's the Dodgers, it's fun that way. And, maybe Pomeranz will give them 7 strong tonight, and maybe Holland will be able to keep the Giants within striking distance, and that'll be the day their bats come alive. So it's just kind of how I'm taking every series. And then they come home and they face the Rays, the Tampa Bay Rays, for their home opening weekend. And, who the hell knows what to make of that either. Just hope that the adrenaline of the home opener and, maybe Longoria having a turnaround this year, maybe, try to ride those kind of coattails and have fun with the Longoria Rays stuff this weekend, It's just kind of how I'm taking it. The Dodgers are going to be good again. They're going to compete again, and the Giants aren't. I'll say the Padres really have a chance to compete. And the Giants – yeah, the Giants are going to play every team in the division hard this year. I do see that happening, but just hope for 1 out of 3 when they have their best stuff on the hill.
Well, this is what's crazy is that not every NL team has played 4 games yet. Most have, maybe about a little more than half. Dodgers have 42 runs. The Giants have 5. Dodgers have scored. That's an average of 10 plus runs per game. 4 games, 42 runs. That's 10.5 per game. Incredible. Just absolutely incredible. The Giants have scored 5. The Reds have also only scored 5. They've only played 2 games, ladies and gentlemen. Half as many games as the Giants. So, yeah, the Giants' offense is clearly the worst in the NL right now. But we'll see what they do against the Dodgers. They just need to – everything goes – the Dodgers aren't going to average 10 runs a game the whole season. We know that. So, I think this is kind of the beginning of maybe a correction here. But – we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but they're freaking good. So if the Giants lose one of these games, 12-1, I'm not going to be shocked at that either. They lost the season finale last year, 15-0 to this team. So
yeah, that was a bad way for Hunter Pence to go out, huh? By the way, he's on the Rangers. Just reminding you guys of that. Okay, so let's talk about the Giants keeping the streak alive of using a different opening day left fielder since 2007. This is something that you've always loved to talk about for the last 3, 4, 5 years, and it just keeps happening. So I'm going to read you guys a list. We're going to take a trip down memory lane from 2007 to present. So here we go. Starting in 2007, here's your list of opening day starting left fielders. Barry Bonds, Dave Roberts, Fred Lewis, Mark DeRosa, Pat Burrell, Aubrey Huff, Andres Torres, Michael Morse, Nori Aoki, Angel Pagan, Jarrett Parker, Hunter Pence, and now Connor Joe. Holy shit, dude. Joe. It's like, I just, and here's the thing. There's no doubt that 2020 will be different because there's no way Connor fucking Joe is going to be starting in 2020.
Half the guys you named are like infielders too. It's like they never, and like Torres is a center fielder. Pagan is a center fielder. Like nobody is even in position on that list. Hunter Pence was not a left fielder until he started there. Like most of the guys are out of position. Like it's a giant black hole. It's like Bonds cursed it or something. Hopefully Bonds lifted the curse by getting his number retired last year. Hopefully all the bad juju in left field goes away because, damn, that's bad.
That's really, really bad. Really bad.
13 years.
You got the manager of the Dodgers is part of that list, right? You got many guys who have been retired for many years, part of that list. Okay, looking at this list, going in backwards order, Connor Joe obviously is active because he's on the team. Hunter Pence is active, barely, with the Rangers. Jarrett Parker is a minor leaguer. Angel Pagan is out of baseball. Aoki's out of baseball. Morse out of baseball. Torres, Huff is retired. Burrow's retired. DeRosa's tired. Lewis tired. Roberts is the manager of the Dodgers, and of course Barry Bonds. So yeah, I mean, it's just talk about a revolving door. In 2020, guaranteed will be different. There's no way Connor Joe is starting next year, so it's going to be 14 years next year. This is unreal. This is absolutely unreal.
I have a feeling it'll be some sort of veteran that the Giants trade for this year in the middle of the season, because that pitching depth that Zaidi tried to trade at the end of spring training is still there.
Yeah.
And I do think he's still going to build a roster that way. It's just going to take a few more months to do it. I don't know who that outfielder is. I don't know who that name guy might be, but I mean, it sure as shit ain't Connor Joe.
No doubt. All right, so Eric has done a fantastic job on our social media accounts, especially the last 3 or 4 weeks, doing the countdown and writing the season preview and many other things. So one of the things that he put out there was, give us your season prediction. How many wins are the Giants going to have this year? We do this every year. It's a lot of fun to talk about, and we've had some wacky, zany, crazy responses in years past as everybody's coming off World Series victories going, they're going to win 110 games this year, that kind of stuff.
To be fair to all the fans out there, I picked the Giants to go to the World Series on this podcast last year.
That is true.
It happens to the best of us. I should say it can happen to anyone, not the best of us. That's not me, but it can happen to anyone.
I called you a crazy mofo last year too.
And you were right.
And I was right. I didn't think they were going to be as bad as they were, but we'll talk about that at some other point. So, Eric, why don't you go ahead and start reading off some of these Facebook responses? I think they're fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely a wide range and of answers here, and we just kind of wrote them down as they came in underneath. Jonathan Carl Gibby said that they'll win 82 games. We'll share our sorry, not to sidetrack. We'll share our win predictions after we read yours. Jonathan Carl Gibby said 82. Russell Smith said 75. John Anthony Gonzalez has high hopes at 95 wins and that the Giants will win the West. Dave Saunders, 77. Our friend Ryan Leong, 75. Alec Bearfield, and I want to give a shout out to Alec. Alec shared the countdown like every single day as it was coming down the stretch. So I really appreciate that. That was a lot of fun to do the countdown up to the season. So I really appreciate the interaction, Alec. Alec also went strong with 91 wins. He does not specify if the Giants make the playoffs, though. I suspect if they do win 91 games, they will make the playoffs. And then I'm going to pass it off to you after Jim Moore picks 93 wins that they'll win the NL championship, the NL pennant, and lose to the Yankees in the World Series. And Jim, I hope you're right. I really do, because the Giants-Yankees World Series would be a lot of fun. But I hope you're right.
Our good friend Michael McKay guessed 78. Austin Stitzel, 80. Chris Corbett, or Corbet, I guess it's Corbett.
No, it's Corbett. Yeah, it's Chris Corbett. Yeah.
Corbett, thank you. 84. Anders Hoff, 76. Karen Shepard, 73. Michael Rainey, 75. Barrett Muller, 70. Patrick Strobin Sr., 84. And then Mike Allred, who's also been very engaging with us as well. Thank you, Mike. Up at 90. And then we got about 4 or so Twitter responses. So why don't you take those? Those are all Facebook. And Twitter, Facebook people, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We got like 20-something responses. But Twitter is kind of one of those weird platforms where it's got to be kind of on the spot. But why don't you take those?
Yeah, Wilhelm von Stupid.
I love that.
Yeah. He started following us recently. His handle is at Ronaldo Purissimo. said 65 glorious wins. Embrace the suck. $15 bleacher seat madness in July and free garlic fries after the 7th. Let's do this. And I love his enthusiasm. I really do. Steve Svensson, SS Svensson 19 is his handle. 75 wins. Bumgarner is our only all-star and will get dealt at the deadline because I also put out there, will Bumgarner get dealt and who will make the all-star team. He says Mac will either not be a Giant in 24 hours or will lead the team in homers. And he said this a day before opening day.
Yes, he did. He did a good job.
He did, and this happened. And he said he was hoping that Mac stays and he's done being jerked around. And I'm going to give Steve some credit here. Steve is somebody I've regularly interacted with on Giants Twitter over the years. He has a smart approach to the team. He sees the team with a very good eye, a scouting type eye. So if you want to give Svensson, SSVENDSEN 19 on Twitter a follow. That's Steve. He's a good Giants fan to interact with. Then we've got Bryn Davies, 79. He said, keeping expectations low to avoid disappointment. We're with you there, Bryn. 79 wins, improving on last year, but not anticipating playoffs. That's pretty much the feeling we got in this room. And then ZLN, F Clef Ace. I know he's a comedian, so I don't know if this is 100% straight up or not, because he is. The man is a stand-up comedian. He said 88 wins, Buster's an all-star, Bum stays a Giant, and gets an extension, 2-year extension, and that Belt leads the team in homers with Connor Joe a close second. So I'm going to give him credit that the first half of that is all for truth, and then Connor Joe being second in homers is a little bit of a joke.
Yeah. I think so, too. So what's interesting is all these responses averaged out to 80 and a quarter wins. So basically, the collective responses are just under 500 for the year. So that's interesting, but that's definitely much lower than it's been in the past. Again, we've had crazy responses. Most everyone has been over 90 wins, some over 100. So this is definitely dialing it down in terms of expectations. Our highest expectation was 95. Our lowest was 65, so we kind of have a 30-win differential between our responses. So thank you so much for responding. And now, what we always do every year is we give our season predictions. And I had a fantastic streak going where 4 consecutive years I nailed the exact win total. That has completely dissolved over the last 2 or 3 years. I have just absolutely shit the bed in terms of total wins. So, but we're going to try it again.
That's not your fault. That's their fault.
Between me and Eric. Yeah, it was incredible. I was like, dude, take me to Vegas, baby. I should work at a sports book. I mean, how can I nail? It's like Chris Davis hitting 247 4 years in a row. It's like how does that happen? That's what I did 4 years in a row. I nailed the Giants' win total, and this is, by the way, going from World Series to no playoffs to World Series to no playoffs, and I expected the 80 to 90 wins, then down to the low 80s to the 70s. So like every year, for some reason, I was nailing it, but now I'm all over the board. So we're gonna try this. So we have a few questions for myself and Eric, pretty basic ones, but the first one, total wins. I am personally going with 73. And there's a reason for this, but I'll let Eric continue with his total because of his reason.
Okay, well, I'm going 75 because that would put Bochy at 2001 career wins. And with a team that's going to not win a lot of games, it's tough to peg down. So for sentimental reasons, I want him to get over the 2000 mark. So I went with 75 because Bochy started the season 74 wins from 2000.
And that's why I think life is going to be cruel to Bruce Bochy. I think the Giants are going to finish 1 win short of 2000. That's cruel. It's unusual punishment, but I think the way the Giants season is gonna go, Bochy's gonna go out 1 win short of 2000. I really clearly want him to get 74, but that's what I think is gonna happen. Okay, so the next question: will Bumgarner be traded by the deadline? I say, because this is Zaidi, he's a new guy, he's new world, and he does this kind of stuff. I say yes.
I said no, but I 100% see your side and would not be shocked. I think Bumgarner is going to prove himself too valuable of an asset this year. I think he's in a prove it season, and he's going to go out there and F you to everybody.
I think I will say this: if they had signed Bryce Harper, I think absolutely he would be traded by the deadline. I know that sounds crazy, but it's because they have the contract obligation to Harper and Posey and Shark. But now that they don't have the Harper contract and they're dealing with all these guys, I do think it's a higher possibility or probability that Bum will be signed to an extension, be it 2 or 3 years, with Zaidi, because if he thinks by the deadline that they have a forecast of being much better in a couple of years, he might want to have him around, and he'll be willing to fork out the cash, and the owners will be willing to fork out the cash for him. Not to mention it puts butts in the seats, and it's sentimental value to Giants fans. I clearly do not want to see him traded, everyone. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just objectively thinking that Zaidi, if he gets a really good offer to reload the farm system, which the Giants, by the way, are known to have one of the worst farm systems in the league, may and probably will pull the trigger. So we'll see.
It's just with everything that we listed, Bochy last season, Zaidi being in his first year, Giants being in a rebuild, he's just that blue chip.
He is. He really is. And again, it's going to have to take a good offer from someone, be it the Yankees or Astros or someone like that. But Zaidi's not an idiot. He's not going to trade away Bumgarner for some chump change. So it's got to be a good offer. And that could be a hard press. There could be some hardball negotiations, and Zaidi could just back off and say, you know what, it's not worth it, and keep him. So, but will there be negotiations at the very minimum? Of course. We know that's going to happen. Let's just question if they pull the trigger. Okay, so will any Giant hit 20 home runs? I say no, especially this year. But you're different on that one.
I'm going to say yes. When was the last time? 2011 that somebody hit 20 home runs?
Yeah, Buster hit in 2012 his MVP year, right? He hit 25, I think. I want to say.
Maybe.
I'm
not sure.
I'm going off of pure memory here, so anyway.
Oh, all right, that's the wrong one. I say Longo has the year I mentioned earlier. After being in the National League for a year, all these parks are going to be familiar to him. He's healthy. He's looked it. He was their best hitter, I thought, this past weekend until he fouled a ball off his calf on Saturday night. Yeah. But I think Longoria is going to have a bounce back year, and I think he's going to hit 20 to 20. I think he could hit 25. I think we're going to see a lot of those laser shots like he hit to left field in the second game of the season for their first run of the year. So, I say Longo hits over 20. I think he hits 25.
Okay. Who will lead the Giants in home runs? So I'm going to guess that you're saying Longo.
Right.
On this one. I think, I know that sounds crazy because he never stays healthy, but I think Brandon Belt will. We'll see. But if he stays healthy, I think he has a good shot at doing it. It's just that every year he gets hurt. So I'm kind of going out on a limb on this one. Well, but he's definitely led the Giants before.
I tell you what, I didn't go with Belt because I actually think he might be traded sometime this season. Oh, okay. And I don't think he'll finish the season on the team. I'm not hoping for such a thing, but I could see him viewed as a valuable chip as well because he is that high on-base type player.
No, I can see that for sure. With Zaidi again and Belt having this track record of injuries and not breaking through could be a reason to get rid of him to a team that is perceiving him as having, like, we need him down the stretch, Okay, so who will be an all-star? I'm going to say I'm keeping it literally I know it's just after the all-star game that he might be traded, but I'm thinking Bumgarner and Posey just because of his name recognition. So, and that's it. No more. Who do you think?
I forgot. I didn't forget about Posey, but I should have said Posey for your same reasoning. I'm going to say Bum, maybe Pomerantz, and go out on the limb with Duggar. I think if Duggar can get off to a good start, it'll be noticed. The 7 strikeouts in the first few games is not a good thing, but in the one game the Giants did win this weekend, Duggar was 2 for 4. And in the 2 games they lost with him at the leadoff, he was 0 for 8. So I think he's part of the engine that makes that offense go, what little offense there is. So if he can get some offense going, I think he can get some recognition as maybe a reserve, not necessarily getting voted in as a starter. And then, like I said, Bum and maybe Pomerantz. But you know what? I forgot about Posey. I'm going to throw Posey in there too. I think Posey on name recognition might get the vote unless Real Muto and the Philly vote just takes over, and that's entirely possible.
Entirely possible. Okay, so who's going to lead the Giants in wins in ERA? I think we both are clearly thinking the same thing. Bumgarner.
Bum.
He's not starting the season on the shelf, which is great, which he's done the last 2 seasons. So even though D-Rod led last year with a 2.81, and I think he'll have a good fine season this year, but I do think that Bumgarner, given that it's a contract year and he might be traded, he's going to either... I mean, he wants to stay a Giant. He said that. So I think he's going to be playing so well if he's healthy. He's going to make the Giants think twice about trading him. So I think that I agree with Eric that he's going to be leading the Giants in wins, which, by the way, may only be like 9.
Right.
and ERA.
He's going to get caned, so, you know.
Yeah, he's going to get caned a lot. All the pitchers are going to get caned a lot, some more than others. Okay, then how many blown saves are they going to have? They led the NL last year. Don't get me wrong. I don't think the bullpen is as bad as last year, so I don't think they're going to equal those numbers. But I still think they're going to have a lot of bad luck losses, and so I still think they're going to lead the NL in blown saves.
I say not as many as last year, only because I think the bad luck losses are going to lessen this year. The Giants showed over the weekend that they are paying attention to the little things. Things like getting Myers thrown out for not retouching second base. The play that Parra made with Belt, like they're looking at the little fundamental things, and I think that bodes well for them this year. So I don't think they blow as many games. Right. I do think they're going to lose games 9-2, but I think that if they have a lead in a 3-2, 4-3, 5-3 game, I think generally speaking they're going to keep it. So I don't think the bullpen will blow as many this year.
Okay, good. All right, so you have some questions, and this was just added in, so this will be interesting. This will be fun. You got some season prediction questions, huh?
Yeah. Do you have any overall major league predictions? I didn't throw in the awards here, but do you have a World Series winner? Who wins the pennant in each league? And we could run through and pick the divisions real quick if you want. I know it's totally off.
I'm looking at the the divisions right now. So let's just start at the top. AL East. I mean, New York and Boston were fighting it out all last year. I know Boston started 1-3, but the Yankees are 1-2. Boston is, to me, just an unstoppable force. I think they're going to do it again. So I'm going to pick Boston to win the East, with the Yankees making the wild card again. I'll just go through the AL, and then you can jump in with the AL, and then we'll do the NL. Right. AL Central, I think that's a no-doubter. Cleveland. Cleveland is... We were talking about the White Sox, the Tigers, the Twins, and the Royals. I mean, those teams have been very bad the last 2 years. Cleveland is just the preeminent dominant force in the AL Central. I think that's the only, to me, real lock. Like, that is a lock. I would literally bet $1,000 on the Cleveland Indians winning the AL Central. So I think they're going to be there. As far as the AL West, again, the A's were 97 wins last year. They were incredible.
Crazy.
Seattle has really, really improved, and I know it's early in the season and they're 5-1. That doesn't really have any bearing on my thoughts. But I still think Houston is going to do it. They've again not really changed too much in terms of their roster. They've been perennial contenders. They've won the West a couple years in a row. So I'm picking Houston. And as far as the second wild card, I do think it could be Seattle this year. I think they're good. I think they're going to be better than the A's. The A's are great last year. Billy Beane and staff and Bob Melvin do a fantastic job. I just don't think that the A's are going to win 97 again. That's just such a high watermark that I think it might be Seattle's turn. So, yeah, I'm going with Boston, Cleveland, Houston, and then New York and Seattle for the wild card.
Okay, I'm flip in the AL East. I'm going to take the Yankees to win that division. I just feel like it's kind of their time. The Red Sox are going to be competitive, but I think they will end up with one of the wild card spots. I'm with you on the Central. There's no point discussing anything else. Cleveland. And in the West, I think Houston, they've won 100 games 3 years in a row now, I think it is. So I think they're going to get close to that again and win that division, if not over 100 games. And I was with you on Seattle, but I think I'm going to go with Tampa as my other wild card team.
They were
And
over 90
Boston.
wins last year. They were great.
Yeah, I'm going to say Boston and Tampa have to play in the wild card game.
Okay.
And and then the AL champion, I think, will be Houston. I think that Houston comes back to the World Series this year.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so the NL East, it's going to be fun. Washington's not going to be good. Atlanta proved themselves to be excellent last year. Miami's not going to be good. The Mets, I don't believe, are going to be good. So it really comes down to Philly and Atlanta. And I don't know. I mean, again, Philly has some great pitching, and they added Harper and Real Muto, and a couple other guys. So with them winning, high 80s last year, I guess it was. I know they tailed off at the end, but they were definitely in the mix of it. They clearly improved their team. So to me, the Phillies are the cream of the crop in the NL East. The NL Central, I don't think there's any reason to pick against the Brewers. They proved it last year. The reigning NL MVP started off with 4 consecutive home runs in those 4 games and had the game winner. I see Milwaukee doing that. If not, it would be probably St. Louis, but the Cubs have taken a big drop off, and Pittsburgh and Cincinnati will always be bridesmaids. So I'm picking Milwaukee, and then in the West, to me, I mean, 6 years in a row, Eric. 7 years in a row, whatever it is. So I hate saying it, but look what they've already started the season doing, hitting 14 home runs. Got to go with the Dodgers, to me. As far as wild card, I think it could be the Braves, because I still think they're going to be competitive this year. And then the second pick is going to be a little harder for me. I think it could be the Cardinals, or it could be a surprise team like the Padres. I'm going to stick with the Cardinals, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Padres win like 90, 91 games and sneak into that second wild card spot.
That's funny. Okay, so you had Philly winning the East, Milwaukee in the Central, and the Dodgers in the West. Yeah. I too have Philly in the East. I think Philly is the best incarnation of this Philly that they've been. McCutchen is also one of their new additions. That's right. Arrieta's signed for a few more years. He'll continue to dominate. I think the Braves, there's not really a drop-off from last year. It's just that the Phillies got that much better. You move to the Central, and I'm still a believer in the Cubs. I think that they'll get their bullpen problems figured out, even though Craig Kimbrell is still sitting out there, and I don't understand why no teams are going after him. I don't get it. I just don't get it. But I'm sticking with the Cubs, though. I'm sticking with the Cubs in the Central. It's probably my bias, and I've watched them this weekend, and there's nothing. They hit like the Dodgers do, so I'm going with that. Sure. But ironically, in the West, I think the Dodgers' reign ends after 6 years, and I think the San Diego Padres win the National League West. Wow, I think they come out and surprise people. I think their drop-off comes next year. I think they ride the wave this year, and the Dodgers, who have been playing deep into October for many straight years now, I think they finally run out of gas, and they don't even make the playoffs this year.
Wow.
And so the wild card teams then end up being, so my division winners are Philly, Chicago, and San Diego. The wild card is going to be Atlanta against Milwaukee, the battle of the Braves franchises, if you will. And the National League champion, the fodder for the Astros to beat up on in the World Series, is probably going to be Jesus, that's harder. I want to say Philly. I really want to say Philly, but they're so overhyped and oversold right now.
I know, right? I mean, the playoffs are such a crapshoot anyway, but
they are. So I'll say San Diego. All right. So my World Series is Houston, San Diego.
All right, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I think it's hard. Boston is just so good right now. I know you're picking the Yankees. It's a tough one. Houston is another close call. There's no, you look at the World Series every year. It's never the same 2 teams. So, picking Boston and LA, that was last year's World Series. That would just be stupid because it's very rare that a rematch happens in consecutive years. The Dodgers have definitely made 2 World Series in a row. They just played the Astros and then the Red Sox. So again, going to Houston and LA, that's what they had 2 years ago. So the playoffs are just funny, man, because like you can have dominant teams over 3, 4, 5 years, but you never get the same teams in the final series. It's really hard because you have the 5-game series and the 7-game series, and anything can happen in those series. But given that fact, I do think unfortunately the Dodgers are going to be back for a third year in a row, and it's just going to extend this meme of the Dodgers not winning since 1988, no matter how good they've been over the last 6-7 years. So I do think the Dodgers are going to make it, and they're going to lose to the eventual champion, and I think the Astros are going to do it again. So I'm going to say Astros-Dodgers with the Astros winning.
How about that? We both picked Houston to win it all.
Yeah, but well, whatever it is what it is. We could see again Milwaukee just steamroll. We could see the Cubs catch fire with their offense. We could see Philly living up to the hype. We could see Seattle coming out of nowhere. Oakland doing 97 wins again. Cleveland finally breaking through, right?
Yeah, they've had it tough. They keep getting there, but they just don't.
They keep getting there, and they just don't know how to close the door. So, I mean, the Yankees, or like a dark horse, like you suggested, could be Tampa Bay. They won 90-something games last year. And they started this season 3-1. So, who's to say that they don't somehow do this crazy Giants of 2010 kind of thing, because no one thought they would do it in 2010.
3-1 over the Houston Astros, who we just both said might win it all. So
crazy. So, all right. Well, that was a lot of fun.
Baseball is back.
We'll see how wrong we are about everything come September and October, but that was awesome. All right. So as we wrap up episode 159, you have a couple of things you want to talk about.
Yeah, baseball's back. First of all, I'm so excited. This is great.
Me too.
Like you talk about that day that you take off work, Friday, when the Giants have their home opener. I'm not one to tell you how to work, but that'd be a good choice to do that day. Saturday was the first day that there was really a full like double, triple header type stuff going on. Like opening day even only had one late game, and I don't mean like 7:00 your time. 7:00 my time was the final game of the day. So it was kind of weird, the scheduling. So, like, you haven't missed that marathon kind of day yet. So you can get that this week. I'm going to roll out a couple things this week leading up to said home opener. Starting a new weekly look at this week in Giants history that will be dropping Wednesday mornings. Just to preview this week's, I'm looking back to the beginning of an era in 2010 when the Giants won opening day over Houston and thus began the first season of 3 world championships in 5 years. So I figured that'd be a good one to go look back at. And then, so look for every Wednesday after that will be another This Week in Giants history pertaining to some date during that calendar week. And my calendar always goes Monday to Sunday, so it's that calendar week. It's not like Sunday to Saturday. Right. So if you look at a baseball schedule, just the way the teams overlap and how Sunday is a final day. I grew up in the restaurant industry, and your schedule goes Monday to Sunday. So Monday to Sunday has always made a lot more sense to me than Sunday to Saturday. So it'll be that This Week in Giants history every Wednesday morning. And then I'm going to drop a thank you letter to Bochy on Friday before the home opener, just kind of highlighting all the things he's done for this franchise and, just the gratitude that as a fan I have for him for bringing 3 world championships to our favorite team and, giving us the ability to talk about them in such a way now that we weren't able to 10 years ago. So look for that home opener on Friday, April 5th, my thank you letter to Bochy. And maybe it'll get into his hand somehow. Who knows?
Oh, that's awesome. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, we'll talk about that because, I'll be covering some games this year, and who knows, maybe I could hand deliver it to him. I doubt it. They probably go, it's got anthrax on it. Or something.
White powder.
Yeah, he'd be like, whatever, kid, get out of here.
That's just my stash, Boach.
That's right. Yeah, roll it up, baby. All right, so coming up, the Giants have 3 in L.A. against the hated Dodgers. They start tonight. They'll have those 3 games. We'll see how they do. Drew Pomeranz is starting tonight. Then they reset the rotation with Bum. Then they have a day off. And then, of course, their home opener on Friday against the Tampa Bay Rays? ? Odd home opener, but that's just the way interleague schedules happen. They're trying to spread it out a little bit more throughout the year. So it's a very odd home opener, but that'll be fun. And then it looks like we'll be recording, should be recording next Monday to kind of review those 6 games. So That's about it for episode 159. You can follow us collectively at TortureCast. Like us on Facebook. You can look us up at TortureCast. You can also follow us individually on Twitter at 2outhits for Eric. That's with the number 2outhits. Myself at ChadK21. That's about it for episode 159. Eric, you got anything else to pimp? You got your stories out there and everything?
Yeah, that's about it. Just baseball's back. It's so wonderful. I bought a new TV for my office.
Yes.
And honestly, I'm having a hard time moving. I'm watching Pirates Cardinals right now.
Me
like
too.
there's gonna be a lot of baseball stuff coming out this season. Like even if the Giants suck, I don't care. I'm having fun with baseball this year. So expect some content to be flowing out this year.
Yeah, I missed our very first Little League game for my son while I was on the boat, but we had our second game, my first game, on Saturday, and we jumped out to an early 4-1 lead, and then 5-3. They tied it up 5-5, and in the very last inning, bottom of the sixth, we got a runner on third with 2 outs with 2 strikes on the batter, and there was a wild pitch, and he was able to score and win the game. So we won that 6-5. It was a lot of fun, a lot of excitement for the kids. So, but I'm so glad that not just Little League, but Major Leagues are back. This is the time of the year that is it's just so much fun. You know, getting into the dog days can get a little long. We all know that, but and especially when the Giants are not in the playoffs and Little League is over. But I just love this time of year. You know, the weather's getting good, the smell of the fresh cut grass, the weather, just everything is just fantastic. So it's the birth of spring, the renewal of life, and the renewal of the pastime that we love so much. So glad that you guys can come along for the ride with us, and hopefully you join us for most of the season. The rest of the season.
This is our 8th season, and we wouldn't be there without listeners. So 8th, or I guess you could say this is our 9th season.
Technically, it's our 9th season. That's
it is
right.
our 9th
first
season.
Podcast, yes. I believe, was June of 2011. So that was season number 1, and this would be season number 9. So yeah, we've been around for a while, and we're finally getting paid the big bucks. Just to let you know. No, just kidding. We don't get paid anything, guys. We put up our own money for, website stuff and the equipment and, of course, our time, but that doesn't matter. It's for fun. It's what we love to do, and we want to bring you the content that isn't from, the faces that you always see on the radio and TV. So
where else are you going to hear from some guy in Ray City, Georgia? I mean, come on.
Yeah, and without radio breaks and for an hour plus straight. So hopefully we're bringing you good content. Anyway, for Eric, this is Chad King signing off for episode 159, and we'll see you next week for episode 160 when the Giants will be over 500, of course. We'll see you next time. Boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.